used to call me calm, low maintenance, easy going, the one who could adapt, who never made a fuss. At first, it felt like a compliment, a badge of emotional maturity, but now I wonder if they were just praising the version of me that didn't need anything. Because needing things, that was dangerous. That got ignored, or worse, dismissed. So I stopped needing, and that's when the stillness began. It wasn't peaceful, it was hollow, like sitting in a snowstorm no one else can see. Everything around me muffled, soft, distant, even joy. I laughed at the right times, I showed up for everyone. But somewhere along the way, I stopped showing up for myself. They said I was good at keeping the peace, but I wasn't peaceful, I was dissociating. No one told me that could be a trauma response. It didn't come from war zones or accidents. It came from everyday silence, the kind of silence you get when your feelings go unanswered year after year, when you cry and no one notices, when your voice shakes and they change the subject. So eventually you stop crying, you stop shaking, you stop trying, and you start calling it being chill. But underneath, you're not chill, you're frozen. There's a difference. I remember once I spilled a cup of coffee on the floor. My first instinct wasn't to clean it up, it was to apologize. Even though I was alone, I said, "I'm sorry," to no one, and then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because my body still believed it was wrong to be messy. That's what it felt like to live with this kind of stillness. You're not screaming, you're not crying, but you're also not living. You just maintain, like a background app, always running, never crashing, but never fully on. It's a strange kind of exhaustion, one that sleep doesn't fix, because the tiredness isn't in your body, it's in your existence. You go quiet, not because you're strong, but because no one heard you when you weren't. And over time, you forget what your voice sounded like when it was real. You learn to blend in, smile small, need less, until one day you wake up and realize you never learned how to stay, only how to survive. They said I was easy. I was never easy. I was just tired of fighting to be felt. And now, I light the same candle each night. Not because it changes anything, but because it reminds me I am still here, even if I forgot how to be loud about it. Sometimes I sit in the shower long after the water turns cold, not because I'm dirty, but because it's one of the only places I can still feel something. The quiet is heavy, but familiar, like an old blanket you know you should throw away but somehow can't. I keep telling myself that numb is better than broken, but the truth is, numb is its own kind of breaking. There's a loneliness that comes with being fine, because no one checks on the friend who says they're fine. No one sees the person who never makes a scene. You disappear while standing right in front of them, and they call it strength. But I've started to wonder, what if strength isn't silence? What if strength is screaming anyway? What if it's letting someone see the mess, the need, the ache? Maybe stillness isn't peace. Maybe it's just the pause between the wound and the healing. And maybe, just maybe, lighting that candle is the first sound I've made in years. Lately, I've been watching my own reflection like I'm waiting for something to move. A blink, a twitch, anything. But it stays still, too still, and it hits me. Maybe I've mistaken being invisible for being safe. But safety shouldn't feel like disappearing, so I touch the side of the mirror. It's cold, but not lifeless, just like me, still here. Even if quietly, still here, even if it took me years to notice. They said you were mature for your age, but maybe what they meant was, you didn't ask for much. You didn't cry too loud. You didn't need anything they weren't ready to give. And somewhere along the way, you started calling that peace. Maybe it looked like calm on the outside, but inside, you weren't calm, you were just frozen, like someone pressed pause and forgot to hit play again. I used to wear that too. The badge of unbothered. People praised me for it, said I was easy to be around, said I didn't make things a big deal. But truth is, I was scared that if I did, they'd leave. So I learned how to disappear, while still showing up. That's a trick, isn't it? How to stay in the room but not really be there. how to nod and laugh and text back with a lol, even when your chest feels like a locked drawer you're too afraid to open. Because what if someone sees what's inside? What if you see it? That's the part they never talk about. That numb isn't peace, it's a defense. It's your nervous system saying, this much is safe, don't go past it. Because growing up in chaos teaches you something no therapist worksheet ever could. You don't have to fight or run, you can freeze. And that freeze looks like chill, like low maintenance, like so easy to love, until they ask you, why don't you ever tell me how you really feel? And you don't know how to answer, because you don't remember the last time you knew. Somewhere between the loud voices and the long silences, you became a master at making yourself smaller. Smile at the right times. Don't ask for more. Say, it's fine, until it starts sounding like your name. It's a lonely magic trick to make your feelings disappear and still hope someone will see you. I used to think that was strength. I really did. Being unbothered, being independent, being the one who never needed saving. But lately, I wonder if I just gave up asking. There's this memory I always come back to. Middle school cafeteria. Someone knocked over my tray, milk everywhere, laughter too, and I just stood there smiling, like it didn't matter. That day, I learned something. If you laugh fast enough, people stop asking if you're okay. I still do that, even now, even at 26. I spill something, mess something up, and I laugh too fast, too hard, because I don't want anyone to feel awkward, because I'd rather clean the mess than admit I feel it. Isn't it strange how early the body learns to flinch even when no one's swinging, and we call that resilience? But maybe it's just rehearsal for being hurt quietly. No wonder you're tired. This kind of numb wears a costume, one that never quite fits, but you're too used to wearing it to take it off. I bet you've said this before. I just don't feel much anymore. And no one questioned it, because the world likes you better that way, neutral, manageable. But love doesn't live in neutral. Joy doesn't visit the flat line. Real doesn't grow in the freeze. Some nights I lie in bed and stare at the dark. Not sad, not angry, just gray, like my brain is buffering, like I'm waiting for something to load, but nothing ever comes. I check my phone, scroll for hours, mute stories, reread old texts, but not to feel something, just to remember what feeling was. And I keep the brightness low, so no one sees. So even the screen doesn't get too close. There's a candle inside you, not a fire. Not yet. Just a small flickering thing. Maybe it barely glows. Maybe it doesn't even warm the room, but it's still burning. And that matters more than you know. Because the world doesn't need another version of you who knows how to vanish on command. It needs the one who stays, the one who remembers how it felt to go cold just to be safe, the one who chooses to feel again, not all at once, not loudly, but maybe just enough to light the candle again. Same one you forgot you had, same warmth you told yourself was too much, same table you once sat at, smiling through silence. It isn't too much. You aren't too much. You never were. Just tired, just scared, just human, and that's allowed. Even if no one ever told you. Especially if no one ever told you. They think trauma looks like a scream, a siren, a sudden event that split your life in two. But some of us, we were trained by silence, by slow, invisible storms, by the ache of being misunderstood, over and over and over again. And when that happens long enough, your nervous system doesn't explode. It retreats. It learns how to make everything smaller, your voice, your needs, your presence. That's what complex trauma feels like. Not the crash, but the quiet after. The permanent hush you carry, even in loud rooms. I used to think nothing bad had ever happened to me. No fire, no car crash, no dramatic goodbye. So what right did I have to feel as this tired? But it turns out trauma isn't always what happens to you. Sometimes it's what didn't. No one came, no one noticed, no one asked, and your body started rewriting itself to become easier to love, or at least harder to leave. That's when CPTSD forms, not from one explosion, but from 1,000 emotional paper cuts you weren't allowed to flinch at. You became the peacekeeper, the soft one, the don't worry about me kid. And people called that strength, but maybe it was just practice for disappearing quietly. The signs are hard to notice, even in yourself. You people please before you even realize you're uncomfortable. You get nervous when someone's tone shifts, even slightly. You replay conversations at 2 a.m. just to check if you were too much. And worst of all, you smile, even when it hurts, because you learned early on that pain isn't safe to show, and that love isn't something you ask for, it's something you earn. So, you shrink, you shift, you shape yourself around other people's comfort, not because you're fake, but because your nervous system thinks it's survival. I still do it sometimes. Change my answer mid-sentence just to keep the room light. Say, I'm good when I feel like I'm unraveling inside. Laugh at a joke that hurt me because I'd rather be included than be honest. It's not weakness, it's not manipulation, it's memory, coded into your body. That's what no one told us. That CPTSD isn't just a term, it's a pattern, a deep, quiet reprogramming. It's why you freeze when there's conflict, why you apologize for things that aren't your fault, why you don't remember how to rest because stillness never felt safe. You don't freak out, you shut down, you don't cry, you numb, you don't scream, you smile. And somewhere along the way, you stopped asking if that was normal, because numb became your baseline, not because you're cold, but because warmth once meant danger. So you trained yourself to stop burning. And now, the wick is dry, but you still carry the match. Quietly, that's the part that gets me. You're still carrying the match, even when no one believed you. Even when they said, you're just sensitive. Even when your feelings were a problem, you never let them go entirely. They're just buried, tucked into quiet places, like an old voicemail you're scared to play, like a draft message you never sent. But it's there, that flicker of you before the world taught you to freeze. That's why I don't like the word broken, because you're not. You're wired for protection, trained for survival, and yeah, that wiring makes it hard to relax, hard to speak up. Hard to feel safe in a body that's always bracing. But even if your nervous system forgets how to rest, you haven't forgotten who you were before all of this. Not really. You remember in flashes, like hearing your favorite childhood song in a grocery store, like the warmth of sunlight through your bedroom window on a day when no one needed anything from you. That version of you still lives here. You may not feel ready. You may still flinch at kindness. You may still ghost people who get too close, not because you don't care, but because you care too much to risk being seen and rejected. But even that is love, a quiet kind, a frightened kind. But love, still. It means your heart never truly gave up, even if your body had to. So take your time. Let the wick stay dry a little longer if it needs to. No rush, no force. Just know, you still carry the match. And that's enough for now. I used to think I was just easy to be around, chill, low maintenance, not the kind of person who needed much, but somewhere along the way that stopped feeling like peace and started sounding like a disappearance. I was always the one who said, it's fine. Whatever works for you. I don't mind. But I did. I did mind. I just forgot how to say it. Or maybe I remembered what happened the last time I did. The silence that followed. The way the room shifted. The way their love changed shape. Sharper, colder. So I stopped asking, stopped wanting, stopped being. Not all at once, just in pieces, quiet, careful pieces. I told myself I was mature, that I didn't need attention. That space was a form of love. But deep down, I wasn't quiet because I was wise. I was quiet because I was gone. Gone. In that invisible way people disappear when they still show up for dinner. Gone. Like answering I'm good on autopilot, even when your chest feels like static. Gone. Like you're in the photo, but you don't remember being there. I kept calling it independence. But what I really meant was, no one looked for me when I needed them. So I learned not to need. They said I was strong. I smiled. but even that felt borrowed, like my mouth wasn't mine. You ever feel like that? Like your personality is a script someone else wrote and you're just reading it out loud to survive the day? Because that's what happens. When love is earned through shrinking, you begin to believe small is safe. You convince yourself that preferences are selfish, that quiet is kind, that being loved means being easy to love. So you become low maintenance, low needs, low voice. You say things like, I'm happy either way, but you're not. You're just scared that choosing will cost you something, someone. I see it now. How many of us live like that? Not fully alive, just conveniently present, like someone hit mute on the inside. You grow up fast in environments where being real gets punished. You start treating your joy like it's too loud, your sadness like it's a burden, your needs like they're landmines. And slowly you start dressing your trauma up in outfits that look like personality. You call it being go with the flow. But really, you don't remember how to swim against anything. You say you're fine being alone, but really, no one stayed when you weren't. You joke that you're low-key, but really, you just learned to dim your light before anyone else could. It's not your fault. You adapted. You survived. You made silence your armor. But now you're older. And maybe that armor doesn't fit anymore. Maybe it never did. I think that's what healing feels like. Not some big cinematic breakthrough, but soft confusion. Like, wait, what do I actually want? Do I even like this? Have I ever been held fully without fear of losing it? There's a version of you still waiting. The one who used to laugh without checking if it was too loud. The one who had favorite colors, not just neutral tones. The one who didn't rehearse their responses before speaking. I see her. I know you do too. She's not mad. She's just waiting to be invited back. To sit at the table again, to wear the full volume of her heart. And maybe, just maybe, you're ready to stop disappearing. Maybe you're tired of being easy to be around, when what you really need is someone who doesn't ask you to vanish to be loved. I used to think I was low maintenance. Turns out I was just scared to cost anything. But you're allowed to take up space, to be inconvenient sometimes, to say, actually, I do have a preference. To cry in someone's arms and not apologize after. You're allowed to return to yourself. Even if it's slow, even if your voice cracks, even if all you can do today is whisper, I think I'm still here. Same candle, same hand, but this time, you're not watching from across the room. You're holding the match again. And maybe, just maybe, you'll let yourself burn, not to disappear, but to feel warm again. The candle is small, but it's burning now. And for once, it's not to keep anyone else warm. It's just so you can feel your own hands again. Maybe healing isn't some big moment. Maybe it's not a breakthrough or a breakdown. Maybe it's just this. You catch yourself spacing out mid-text, and instead of snapping back with shame, you blink slowly and breathe. You say, okay, I was gone for a second, but I'm here now, and that counts. There was a time you thought numbness meant strength, that if you didn't cry, if you didn't scream, if you didn't need anyone, you'd won. You'd finally mastered your pain, but then someone hugs you, and something in you breaks open, not loud, not dramatic, just a soft crack where you used to be stone. You don't fall apart, you melt. I used to think I was over everything. I laughed at things that should have hurt. I helped people through their storms while pretending I never had one. And I called it growth, maturity, peace. But the truth? I was just frozen, like food in a pretty container, perfect from the outside, but untouched by heat, untouched by life. And one day, I sat in my car, no music playing, just watching raindrops race down the windshield. And I realized this isn't peace, this is pause. There are signs, though, tiny ones. The first time you speak and your voice trembles, not from fear, but from finally letting yourself feel. The first time you cry over something small, like a commercial or a song you forgot you loved. And instead of wiping your tears fast, you let them fall. You let yourself be seen, even if no one's watching. Even if it's just you and a quiet room and a heart that's finally waking up. There's no medal for staying dissociated, for being the easy one, the low-maintenance friend, the calm coworker who never complains. But there's something sacred about deciding to return, not to the world, not to the noise, but to yourself. 1 second at a time, you start small. You feel the texture of your shirt against your skin, the temperature of water on your hands. You notice how your breath sounds in the morning, shaky but real. You text someone back, not out of obligation, but because you actually wanted to, and that scares you a little, because wanting is risky. It means you're here. Some days you'll still drift. You'll open your fridge and forget why. You'll scroll for an hour and feel nothing. You'll hear your name and not feel it land. That's okay. You're not broken. You're just relearning how to stay. And staying isn't a moment, it's a practice. One I'm still learning too. I still zone out in conversations, still avoid mirrors on hard days, still flinch when someone gets too close, not physically, emotionally. But lately, I've started lighting a candle before bed, not to impress anyone, not to perform calm, just to feel the glow on my face, to remind myself, I'm real, I'm here. And I deserve warmth too. I know it doesn't feel like a comeback. You're not running marathons or building empires. You're brushing your teeth, you're folding laundry, you're speaking when your throat tightens. And honestly, that's louder than any applause. Because this isn't a return to the world, it's a return to you. The you that laughs again, but this time the sound reaches your chest. The you that says, I'm tired without apologizing for it. The you that doesn't flinch when someone looks at you with kindness. The you that stays just a second longer, even when it's easier to leave. Maybe you never disappeared. Maybe you were never lazy, cold, or distant. Maybe you were frozen, paused in survival, and now you're thawing, slowly, softly, without spectacle, just one honest breath at a time. The candle is small, but it burns steady. And tonight, for the first time in a long time, you don't leave the room before it goes out. You sit with it, quietly, and let the warmth stay just a little longer. The bed is made, the air is still, and for once you're not waiting for something to crash. You sit, quiet, not numb, not hyper-aware, just here. It's strange, but not bad. Like a song you used to love, forgotten, then suddenly playing from another room. For the longest time you thought this calm meant something was wrong, like silence was a warning sign. Like if you weren't on edge, you weren't paying attention. But maybe peace isn't the absence of danger. Maybe it's the presence of return. You're not too calm. You're someone who survived by silence. You made your whole life feel quiet because the noise once hurt too much. Even your joy was whispering. Even your laughter didn't echo. But listen now, really listen. There's a sound in you that doesn't feel borrowed anymore. A warmth that doesn't ask permission to stay. Maybe you never disappeared. Maybe you just folded yourself into corners no one could reach. Maybe it wasn't losing yourself, just hiding in plain sight. You wore normal-like armor, smiled like it was safe, laughed in rooms where your voice didn't belong. But you stayed alive. Not just breathing, not just moving, alive, in that quiet, stubborn way, and that matters. Even when no one saw it, even when you forgot. Because you don't have to stay in survival forever. You can come out now, even if it's slow, even if it's clumsy. You don't have to perform safety. You can feel it. One deep breath at a time. One awkward hello. One honest I'm not sure. You can choose presence again and again. It's not a switch. It's not a line you cross. It's a rhythm you relearn. Like walking after a leg falls asleep. The first step is weird, the second is shaky, but the third feels like something returning. You know that candle? The one you used to light for them? To prove you weren't cold? To look strong enough, soft enough, kind enough? It's different now. You light it, and this time, you don't perform, you don't pose, you don't document it for proof. You just let it burn, and the room glows. And for the first time, it feels like it belongs to you. Not borrowed, not earned. Just yours. this body, this breath, this strange flickering stillness. You are still in there, behind the coping, beneath the freeze, inside the parts you thought were too broken to come home. You are not broken. You are returning, at your own pace, in your own shape. Sometimes it's a feeling. Sometimes it's just not flinching when someone loves you. It's the way you make your bed now, not out of discipline, but care. It's how you pause before answering, because you're allowed to take space. It's how you eat slowly, how you don't rush through the mirror, how you sit with yourself, even when nothing's playing. That's presence, that's love, that's life. Not loud, not perfect, but yours. And the old you, the one who carried you here, they deserve your thanks. They kept the engine running. They made sure you didn't vanish. They folded your softness into armor. And it worked. So maybe you whisper now, thank you, I'll live for both of us now. Because healing doesn't mean replacing who you were. It means finally meeting them, sitting with the quiet kid, the frozen teen, the tired adult, the version of you that paused the world until it was safe enough to press play. And now, the music's low, but it's playing. The candle flickers, the silence stays, and somehow it doesn't feel empty. You breathe, not because you have to, but because you can. And maybe that's enough for today. Maybe that's everything. If this reached you at the right time, pass it on. There's someone else who still thinks they're too calm. Someone who forgot they were allowed to come back to life. Tag them, send it, save it. This story isn't just mine, it's ours. Let's light the room together.